What's up guys, I'm BTC, and now you can put terror in the hearts of your enemies with the corrupted healer from Dorado, Vidal. In case you missed it, there's some bonus content for this hero concept in the form of a fully animated comic. It turned out great. It follows the story of several members of Los Muertos and gives you a little bit of insight into Vidal. So if you haven't watched it, go and check it out. While it's been a little while since I released the hero concept, I have been working and making more behind the scenes. It's just that comic I mentioned took a while to make, and as cool as it would be to have a comic for every single hero concept, it's just not possible. They take way too long to make. I'm not ruling out making any more in the future, but there definitely won't be a new comic for every single hero concept. Also, quick shout out to X-SEIDE-T. He's the artist who helps me with these hero concepts and that comic. You can find a link to him down below. And lastly, make sure to like the video and share it on social media. That sort of stuff really helps it gain traction on YouTube. For Vidal, the hero creation method I used was to start with story and then find abilities that match the concept. I really wanted to create an evil healer. Right now we only have Moira. All of the other healers are good guys. Even Baptiste, who was originally in Talon, has left them, and now he's a good guy as well. So, the goals for Vidal was to create an evil healer. And I decided to go with Los Muertos because we already have the Talon healer, which is Moira, and we have the Talon healer, which is Baptiste, so that was kind of already done. I wanted something new. And then the second one was more utility and lower healing. I wanted the character to be more of an off healer than a main healer. And then the third, I came up with the idea of having multiple stances. So you'll have a healing stance versus a damage stance. Every culture throughout the world has traditional and spiritual healers. In Latin America, they are known as curandero. While technology has advanced quite far with biotic healing, some still seek traditional treatment. Unlike a doctor you may find in a hospital, the traditional role of a curandero was to not only treat the injuries of our physical form, but also spiritual illness that may have been caused by an angry spirit or a curse. Some believe that the healing power of a curandero comes from beyond this world. Vidal was by all accounts very gifted in all of the traditional healing arts. He was well respected and often sought out by those in his community for advice and remedies. One evening, after a particularly long and trying day, Vidal went to his room and fell upon his bed exhausted. As he drifted off to sleep, he was startled awake by voices. He thought perhaps there was an emergency for someone to come calling so late at night. He went to check the door, but there was no one outside. There was no one around at all. Vidal was alone. Confused but still exhausted, he went back to his room and his bed. When he closed his eyes, once more he heard voices. His eyes shot open, and he listened intently. At first he couldn't quite make out what was being said or where it was coming from. After a few moments, the sounds became more clear. The sounds were whispers, and they were coming from several different people, but Vidal had just checked and there was no one around. So who or what was trying to speak to him? Before he could figure it out, they were gone. When Vidal awoke, he believed the incident to be nothing more than a dream brought on by his exhaustion, but this was shattered the following day when the whispers returned. Alone at night, he heard them, and over the next several weeks, the words would become more clear, and then not long after, he would begin to see them. Spirits of those long since passed, and they had much to talk about. Some just wanted to have their story told, while others passed on forgotten knowledge of healing. Vidal eagerly listened to all that they had to say, and soon began spending more time with the dead than the living. He learned much and more. Unknown to Vidal, some of the spirits he spoke with did not have the best intentions. For just like the people they once were, the spirits can have their own motives and desires. While some were gifted healers who sought to teach Vidal, other spirits had gone to their grave full of anger, malice, and greed. The problem with delving into powers of the beyond is that often those who seek to control it are instead controlled by it. This influence began to corrupt and change Vidal into a different person. Over time, those people that had once respected and loved him now only feared him. Where once Vidal had been a gifted and noble healer, now he was something else. The more he learns from the spirits, the more he seeks it. And the more he seeks it, the more lost and corrupted he becomes. Vidal is a very advanced off-healer. His primary ability is Spirit Swap, and all other attacks and abilities flow from this. So the type is a stance shift, duration is until cancelled, casting time is 0.3 seconds, cooldown is none, and the effect is that Vidal will change stance between Merciful and Spiteful. This is the most important part of his entire kit, because this controls how the other abilities and the attacks will work. For comparison on the casting time, it's a little bit faster than Bastion's Transform, but because Vidal is an off healer who needs quick reaction time, that stance swap needs to be a little bit faster. For his attack, his weapon is called the Angry Spirit. We're going to start with the Merciful stance, then go into Spiteful. You can see this indicated in the middle of the screen with the Spirit Swap icon. So the type is Projectile. It will heal for 22 in Merciful stance. It cannot critical. The rate of fire is 1 per 0.3 seconds. Spread angle is 0. Projectile speed is 70 meters per second. Ammo is 22, and reload time is 1.5. Then when you switch into the Spiteful stance, it no longer heals. Instead, now it will deal damage for 34 per hit, it can critical, and all of the other information remains the same. Important note for the ammo is that it's the same for both stances. So if you use 12 to attack your enemies and then you switch to Merciful stance, you only have 10 to heal before you need to reload. Vidal's abilities come in pairs, and just like how his weapon shares ammo between the stances, these ability pairs also share a cooldown. So the first pair is Empower and Weaken. For the Merciful side, we have Empower, type is a buff, range is 8 meters, duration is 3 seconds, cooldown is 8 seconds, and the effect is damage dealt increased by 35% for teammates, and this shares a cooldown with Weaken. Should emphasize that this is only for teammates. This does not buff Vidal's damage at all. So this is kind of a very small cone AoE type effect where you can very quickly buff the damage of your teammates for a short amount of time in a small area. The other side of this on Spiteful is called Weaken, is a debuff, and it does the exact opposite. So damage dealt is reduced by 35% for enemies. So you hit your enemies with this, and for the next 3 seconds, all of their damage is reduced by 35%. This pairing of Empower and Weaken were specifically designed to perfectly synergize with your primary weapon, Angry Spirit. Because when you're in the Merciful stance and you're looking at your teammates in order to heal them, you can cast this ability and it will empower them. And when you're in the Spiteful stance and you're looking at the enemy in order to damage them, you cast this ability and it will weaken them. So it's designed that when you use this ability, you're already looking at the player that you want to cast it on, whichever side that happens to be. The next ability pairing is Blessing and Bloodthirst. For the Merciful side, Blessing, type is a self buff, duration is 3 seconds, cooldown is 10 seconds, and the effect is plus 30% damage resist, and this shares a cooldown with Bloodthirst. On the Spiteful side, the type is a self buff, duration is 3 seconds, cooldown is 10 seconds, and the effect is plus 50% lifesteal, and again shares a cooldown with Blessing. So the Empower ability that he has only buffs his teammates. I wanted to give Vidal something that he could use to kind of spirit empower himself, and this is what it is. Now, when you're in the Merciful side, you're trying to heal your teammates, and sometimes there are going to be situations where you suddenly come under attack, and it's necessary for Vidal to have a slight boost in survivability in order to keep healing his teammates, and that's why you get the extra damage resist. On the Spiteful side, he has Bloodthirst. It was necessary to give Vidal some kind of self-healing mechanism. Every healer in the game has one. Even Mercy has the passive heal and Zenyatta has the shield regen, so Vidal needed to have something. But because you're in the Spiteful stance and you're attacking enemies, I thought it made a lot of sense to give this some sort of a lifesteal. Also, I think that this is probably going to be a theme for Los Muertos characters. If you notice, some of the other character groups all have characteristics associated with them. Helix has rockets, Vishkar has hardlight and teleporters, so for Los Muertos, I think I'm going to go with a lifesteal theme, and I got some really good ideas. But getting back on track, the lifesteal might seem like it's really strong because it's plus 50%, but keep in mind, it's only a 3-second duration. It's not permanent like what Reaper has. It's only 3 seconds. You get that time, you try to attack the enemy, refill your health as much as you possibly can, and then it's over. Moving on to Vidal's passive, this is a cool ability that I wanted to include on one of the hero concepts, and because Vidal is dealing with spirits, it made sense to give it to him. So it's called Lingering Spirit. The type is an AoE heal. The heal is 60 healing per second for a maximum of 180. Duration is 3 seconds. Area of effect is 5 meters, and the effect is on death, a spirit appears at Vidal's location and heals teammates. So quite simply, imagine a soldier who drops a biotic field when he dies. That's pretty much what happens with this. It's a short duration, small area, you have to be near him when he dies, but it's a nice little extra bit of bonus healing, and considering the fact that Vidal is an off healer and he doesn't provide too much healing to begin with, I felt it was a nice addition to the character. Lastly is Vidal's ultimate, Spirit Protectors. Now you might think because he has 2 stances he's going to have 2 ultimates, but I decided against that for several reasons. The first is that oftentimes ultimates need to be activated immediately. You can't have any delay. And even that very short spirit swap delay might be too much, particularly when it comes to defensive support abilities. When you need to be able to activate that Transcendence or that Sound Barrier, you need to press that button now so that you can protect your team. If you have to switch stances, that delay might be too much. The other thing is, well, what happens if you accidentally activate the wrong ultimate? That would be extremely frustrating for the player. So there's only one character that's ever had multiple ultimates in the past, and that was a different version of Symmetra. She had the teleporter and the shield generator. But the difference with that was that those were out of combat abilities. You wouldn't try to just use them in the middle of a fight, you would use them before the fight even started. And you had plenty of time, and you could pick which one, and then you could confirm it. So having multiple ultimates is just not really very good for the fast-paced action of the fight. So that's why I went with just the one ultimate. The ultimate is called Spirit Protectors. The voice line is Spirits Rise Once More. The type is AoE buff. The bonus health is 250, a damage return of 30%, duration is 8 seconds, area of effect is 20 meters, charge requirement is 2000. The effect is that grants bonus health to Vidal and teammates, and 30% of damage taken is returned to the attacker. From the bonus health pool only, not normal health. There are 2 spirits assisting Vidal, and this draws on aspects of both of them. The Merciful Spirit is providing the bonus health, and the Spiteful Spirit is giving the damage return. We're going to start with the bonus health, because I know people are going to want to compare this to Lucio's Sound Barrier, which has substantially more bonus health, but the trade-off is the Sound Barrier will decay. As soon as you activate it, you get a massive boost of 750 extra health, but over the course of 6 seconds, it will decay down to nothing. That's not including any damage you might be taking. But with Spirit Protectors, while it's a lot less, it's only 250, you get to keep that for the full duration of 8 seconds. Realistically, it's going to be destroyed and taken off before then, and that's the trade-off. Yes, you get less bonus health, but it doesn't decay like Sound Barrier does. The other part of this ultimate is the damage return. Here's an example. You just buffed your teammates with Spirit Protectors, an enemy Reinhardt throws a Fire Strike and hits your teammate, dealing 100 damage. He will instantly take 30% of that damage. In this case, it's going to be 30. Now, if one enemy dealt the damage all together by himself, 250, remove that bonus health, then he would take a maximum of 75 damage. So that's not enough to kill any of the enemies, but it is enough to be a threat. So they need to be a little bit more cautious. I refer to Spirit Protectors as an aggressive defensive ultimate. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but think about using it at the very beginning of a fight. Your team gets that extra health, and the enemy now has to worry about dealing damage to themselves. But it can be even more powerful as a fight starts to wind down. Let's say the enemy team loses one of their healers, and then you use Spirit Protectors. Well, now that one healer not only needs to heal the damage that's coming from your team, but also the return damage from Spirit Protectors. And that is Vidal. I had a lot of fun making that character. I think he's really interesting and would be a great addition to the game. He definitely would have a high skill requirement, that's for sure, but he certainly would be cool to play. I am going to do a follow-up that will go over questions about the character and the comic that I made. So if you have any questions about either of those two things, leave them down below. Also, once more, go and check out that comic if you haven't watched it. It was great. And also, make sure to like and share this video, because liking the video and sharing it on other social media really helps the video gain momentum on YouTube. And if you want to check out more awesome hero concepts, there's a playlist of them that'll be linked on the screen and down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.